Thank you for watching Conscious Consumer Network. The live stream broadcast is free to view. You can pause and rewind live broadcasts to catch up, or view shows at a later date by accessing our free archives of all shows. Check out our broadcast guide to see what's on. You can show your support by donating to our network support fund. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or subscribe to the monthly newsletter for updates. We thank you for supporting free and independent media.
This is For the Love of Learning, Voices of the Alternative Education Movement. Be inspired by the voices of visionaries, changemakers, and ordinary, extraordinary people who do what they do, all for the love of learning.
This is For the Love of Learning, Voices of the Alternative Education Movement. I'm Lainey Liberty, and this is episode number 105. Tonight, we're going to talk about Lego. Sadly, not play with them, but talk about all the ways playing with Lego are educational. When kids are building with Lego, they're using spatial reasoning skills, says Amy Sheldon, a cognitive psychologist and director of research at the Johns Hopkins Center for Talented Youth. These skills are not only have a relationship to academics, but the fields you might gravitate to and where you're going to excel. If you want to build future STEM enthusiasts, you need to start with fundamental skills, and they need to come early, Sheldon says. Something as simple as making sure kids have exposure to block play would set them up for a future where they can build the right kind of skills for whatever field they want to go into, and they won't be restricted because of their lack of early experience, unquote. Tonight, we're going to have a conversation with 4 people who work with children using Lego in different capacities. Some of our guests offer classes, workshops, birthday parties, summer camps. Some focus on different learning aspects like architecture, teamwork, engineering, robotics, and creativity. We've got a lot to explore, but the common thread in tonight's conversation is the connection between playing and learning. I'm going to briefly introduce each of our panelists, and I want to remind our audience that you can find out more about our panelists on the show notes page located at fortheloveoflearningshow.com, and look for the show notes page for episode number 105. There you will find more information about each of our panelists and links to their projects and websites. So first, I'd like to introduce you to Jim. Jim runs Bricks for Kids franchise in Highbridge, New Jersey. He has been a Bricks for Kids owner for 5 years. Bricks for Kids offers summer camps, after-school programs, birthday parties, field trips, STEM programs, and more, all using Lego bricks. Prior to that, Jim worked in the financial services industry and attended Stetson College in Florida. So welcome to tonight's panel, Jim.
Thank you very much, Lainey. It's great to be here.
We're so excited you're here too. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Dixie. Dixie grew up in Boulder, Colorado and graduated from the University of Colorado with a major in Spanish. Along the way, she obtained 2 master's degrees, an educational administrative license, and various certificates, and taught Spanish, advanced placement, and Spanish language, Spanish as a second language in Colorado, Texas, and California. She and her son left the United States 10 years ago and been traveling throughout Latin America. They recently settled in Merida, Yucatan, Mexico for 4 years and have opened up the Language Institute of the Americas, a subdivision of Universal One International Academy. They focus on language learning, coding, and yes, you guessed it, Lego robotics, V3 Lego, Arduino motherboards, educational Lego for 2 and up, and teaching with the Lego curriculum. So welcome back to the show. It's your 3rd show, Dixie. We're so happy you're joining us again.
Thank you. Bienvenido, hola. How's everybody doing today? We ended up going into Lego because it's actually a lead into another language. We do Language Institute of Americas. So with that, we are able to start kids getting their interest with little bitty fun things to do so they can go into different languages like Python and Scratch and different things. So we're having a good time here in Mexico.
I can't wait to learn more about that. Thanks. Thanks for that little intro. We'll come back to you a little bit later on, and I'm just so happy you're joining us again. Next, I'd like to introduce you to Jeff. Jeff plays for a living. Since Jeff was little, he has always pursued whatever he found most fun, whether it was making up games for his friends, writing toy companies to give them his ideas at the age of 10, playing with toys at times Toys R Us, under the Ferris wheel as a paid gig, or now getting adults and kids to play with Lego. Jeff learned a crucial lesson early on in his life while playing. If you're able to create a safe space for people to play, not only are they happier, but you give them an avenue to discover more of who they are. We're excited you're part of tonight's panel. Welcome, Jeff.
Thanks, Lainey. Really appreciate you having us.
You're very welcome. And finally, I'd like to introduce you to Laura. Laura is the president and CFO of Snapology Franchise System. Laura, along with her sister Lisa, founded Snapology in 2010. Snapology's mission is to provide educational play to children using Lego bricks, Kinects, computers, and other interactive mediums. Snapology provides robotics and STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math programs to children of all abilities, including gifted children and those with extra needs. So welcome to tonight's panel, Laura.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So we'll start the conversation with you. Go ahead and tell us why Lego is such an important part to not only learning, but the work that you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the best way to describe that is sort of to talk about how we started Snapology and why we started Snapology. I have two boys. I used to say little boys, but they're teenagers now, so they're bigger than I am at this point. But when my boys were young, Lego was really an outlet for them. One of my sons was using Lego in therapy, and both of my sons were heavily involved in it. And I realized through watching them play how much they were really learning. And that's really when I think the light bulb went on for me as I was searching for business opportunities, just the large breadth of opportunity that the Lego brick as the #1 building toy in the world provides to folks, and just the power of that little brick in helping kids learn and express themselves and really, kind of find their place.
So this seems to be a theme, and I haven't introduced, and everybody else hasn't had a chance to speak yet, but the theme that there's a discovery as a facilitator in the value of using the Lego brick. Did you discover that yourself as a child?
Yeah, I loved Lego as a child. I didn't play with a ton of Lego, so I don't know if it was that my parents didn't buy a ton for me, but I do recall enjoying those types of toys. I loved puzzles. I loved building toys. I can remember playing with Lincoln Logs and Tinker Toys and things like that. And so, I think there's a certain subset of kids that sort of just have that natural curiosity and that natural desire to design and build and just kind of figure out how things work. And so I definitely was a child like that. Ended up going into a mathematics career before Snapology. So I, sort of had that, kind of science and math background in me. And that certainly has passed on to my children for sure.
Awesome. And we're going to talk a little bit later on in the show about the connection between the cognitive development, mathematics, and all of that, and Legos. But thank you. That was an awesome introduction. So, Jeff, go ahead and tell me your background. How is it that you came to be working with Legos and integrating that as a part of a way of approaching education?
Sure. So remember the movie Big? You remember that from like way back when? So I saw that, and then I was like, that's what I want to do. And I literally started writing toy companies like at 10 to do that. And then I went into engineering. Toy company wrote me back, and I went into engineering, and I pursued it and tried a few toy companies, worked at like Sega and Toys R Us and a bunch. But I realized that what I was pursuing was not toy design, but what I was pursuing was play. And then I came across this organization, Playwell, created by this amazing guy, Tim Bowen, in 1997. And the goal was really to get kids interested in engineering. His background was geotechnical engineering, and he wanted to get as many kids interested in how things work. And he was like, how do I use this? And he had many different mediums, but the medium that he found most effective was Lego. So he started doing that in 97. I came on with my colleague in 2003. And it was 7 of us, and now there's 400 of us, and we teach about 100,000 kids a year. And the goal is really much the same. It's just like, how do you create a safe space for kids to learn and kind of figure out who they want to be in this world, whether they want to be innovators, inventors, scientists, and we happen to be using Lego as the medium to do that.
Are there different, and I know we're going to talk about the actual education in just a minute, but Jeff, Are there different ways of playing with Lego bricks that would indicate if you're going to be a creator, an innovator, an engineer, and so forth?
I don't know if there's that, but there definitely, one thing that we broke down that was really interesting is there's definitely different ways in which people play. There's people that love to explore, which means they just build stuff. So they are just like constantly creating worlds. They're the person that would probably put their finger on a hot stove just to see what it's like, right? There are creative people that like they build to express themselves. So a lot of kids come up to us and they're like, take a look at this. And they see this as an extension of like who they are. And then there are like problem solvers that we have in class, people that are constantly wanting different types of challenges. And we see that aspect with each kid, but everyone leans somewhere in that. So I don't know if you can identify where they're going to be, but you definitely can identify where they want, who they are and where they want to go potentially. Like, oh, do I want to challenge this person, or do I want to give them creative expression so they can just go off and be who they are with Lego?
I have so many questions already, but I want to make sure that we get to each person as an intro first. But thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Let's move on to Dixie. Dixie, why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about how Lego is integrated into your style of working with kids. And as you said in the intro, you've approached this language learning and programming, and I know that you guys integrate robotics into it. So go ahead and talk a little bit about all that.
Okay, so one of the most important things that people forget is that kids learn by playing. So we'll have something like this, which is my hi. And so I'm introducing the alphabet letter, the H, and then the I. And then we'll break that down with the kids so that they know what's a capital letter, what's a small letter. We have this little display here, which is actually, we got this from Lego, where it breaks it down. This is in Spanish, but the kids can form A, B, C. They can go into 1, 2, 3. And then we also use this for mathematics, because with the two little bricks, you take a look at the little nodules on the end. So that's 2 plus 2. And what does that equal? And the kids will come up, and they'll come up with a 4. So you can use it for mathematics. You could use it for addition, subtraction, multiplication. And so it's just like amazing when you see what the kids are doing, because you'll have your 4 plus 4, and the kids will actually, like little kids that are 2, 3, 4 years old, here's your 4 plus 4. They take a look at the little nodules, and you've got 8. And then you go on up and you start multiplying and doing all kinds of incredible things. And these little children are showing you they don't have to talk. And it's just like we do in ESL, English as a Second Language. We use whiteboard markers. And the reason we do that is a child can go ahead and mark the letter A and then show it to you, so you've got 100% participation. And the same thing happens with the Legos, because you know if the kid has done an H, he understands what an H is. And then so from that point, if we're using, like what Jeff was saying, you can go around the room and we tell them, okay, this is your time to create a building for your profession. So this week we've been studying professions. So somebody wanted to build a hospital, another one wanted to do a restaurant. And so on the little Lego pieces with these smaller ones, they're actually creating little intricate little buildings, and you look down into them, and then so some kid had an operating table because he wanted to be a surgeon, and you look over and you said, this table over here is for the oxygen unit, and you look and you say, wow, look at what these kids have done. And it's not just like kids think, oh, the only thing to do is just build them up high, high, high. For the little kids, we use the smaller ones like what Jeff has there in his background. And then for the bigger kids, then we start using the smaller units where they're starting to do more intricate kinds of things. So the possibilities are just like wide open. So we could do it in English, we can do it in Spanish. So I could put the hola and it's hi, and the kids can go ahead and it's wide open for them to have. So then we're involving the kids, and it's really exciting. Like I was looking down at one of the kids, and I was looking down and I said, well, what is that? And so their response was, well, it's a fire station. And I looked down into it and I said, I'll be dang, this kid is seeing in 3D. So once I changed my way of thinking, then I could see, and it's like, oh wow, that's just incredible. So why not use something that's fun in order to learn?
Oh my God, that's so awesome. Again, now I have so many other questions. One of the things that you didn't talk about, though, is I know you are using, for the older kids, Legos as part of the robotics. And is that something you can talk a little bit about to start off with?
Well, let me backtrack. When I was in Colorado 3 years ago, I was teaching, my son and I were actually teaching at an all-boys school in Denver. So I was teaching Spanish, he was teaching science. So the teacher had a classroom right in between us, and she was doing Legos and robotics. So she was looking for volunteers to come and help her, and I said, oh, okay, well, I don't know what it's all about, but let me go. And so lots of people are going to know what this is, the Minecraft. So my first introduction was this intricate thing, and I'm watching children putting these robots together, and I'm looking at these pieces and just amazed by the kids' ability. And so one of the things that's really great about this is that kids start working in teams. And so we would have 6 kids on a team, and so that they had to work to figure out. So then one of the things we did was to ask 3 and then ask me. So they would ask their team members, you know, if they couldn't figure out something and then they help, they have to think and use their critical thinking ability. And then if they couldn't find a solution, they come and ask the teachers. Okay, well, then let's try and figure this out. So you're fostering like the knowledge and teamwork and a bunch of different things that just, you know, it's something that you can't do with a little piece of paper and you're sitting there writing and stuff. So, you know, it's very non-traditional, and this works. So it's really fabulous.
Wow. And I'm glad that you ended it with the statement that this is very non-traditional. We're going to hear from Jim next, but I do want to have the panel, after Jim makes his introduction, talk about the non-traditional nature of using Legos as Lego as part of education. So Jim, go ahead and share with us why you've decided to integrate Lego as part of the educational tools that you're working with.
Well, my path to get to here is a little bit different. I was in corporate America for a long time. Reached a point where I was looking for something else, something different, and ultimately started looking in the franchise area and ran across Bricks for Kids. My son was immersed in the Lego world when he was growing up, and we just looked into the concept, and I said, I'm looking for something that's going to be fun. I like working with kids. I've coached and done things like that. So we gave it a shot, and that is what brought me to this point. Now, over the last 5 years, I've learned a lot, and I've learned both what I can mimic what everyone has said in regards to how kids learn and different ways they can do it. It's always amazing when you allow them their creativity to discover what they're going to come up with. And that's, for me, always probably the best part of what I do right now.
Well, what I'm really happy about, Jim, is that you're a part of this conversation, because we're getting all these different perspectives. And I love the fact that you came at it first as a parent, supporting your child, and then looking for something that satisfied all of those needs from your own business perspective. So thank you, and that was a wonderful introduction, and I'm really happy you're a part of tonight's conversation.
Thank you. Oh, thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's always that mute button, eh? Jeff, let's jump on over to you. I know that you've got some thoughts and comments about utilizing non-traditional forms of approaches to education to promote learning. Why don't you talk a little bit about that and how that, you've worked with so many children. I'd love to hear what some of the feedback that you've gotten and some of the results.
Yeah, sure. I think first off, and maybe I have a different definition of what I think a successful education is. I think at the end of the 18 years, or let's just say from kindergarten to high school, when you're done, you should be more curious about the world. Like that's what, granted, there's like a lot of the logistics and a lot of the background that you need to learn from all the subjects from math and science and, English, everything. But if you're not excited about learning at the end of 18 years, then I think we've kind of failed you as a education system. So what we've found, which has been really interesting, is we'll obviously go into traditional after-school programs. We'll teach during the school day. We'll do summer camp programs. We'll do all this stuff. And what we found is that it's a lot of the kids that gravitate to our program, some of the teachers would be like, oh, you have a lot of the troublemakers in your class, or you have a lot of the people that have a hard time focusing in our classes. And we're like, we don't have that issue with them in here. They're phenomenal. And it's because they are doing stuff that actually speaks to their way of hands-on learning. And I think that part is really crucial, as well as the difference between when I teach a homeschool class versus when I teach a class in an after-school program. I mean, the questions that a lot of homeschoolers or unschoolers are having are just off the charts, and some of the things that they're really challenging. And what I really love is we like to provide context. Yes, you have to do math, and yes, you have to do science, but then how do you actually implement it in a way that is tangible at this very moment for a kid? So if a kid is learning about gear ratio or learning about fractions, then let's actually teach them gear ratios, and then they have to build a car that gets up an inclined plane, so they can accomplish a goal to save the community. How do you do that in a way that is actually, that matters? Because if you're just text, then they really aren't really excited about why they should be learning. And that's what I love about the non-traditional approach, because everyone's comfortable with Lego, but then they can associate it to so many different worlds.
Yeah, and you know, your comment, Jeff, on maybe the troublemakers or maybe some different types of kids being in the programs, you know, we find that too. And I think one of the most interesting components of that is we find that a lot of children with extra needs kind of gravitate to these programs. And if you don't understand their extra needs, you can see them as troublemakers. They're really not troublemakers, although, you know, a lot of, you know, they may cause trouble to,
Right.
you know, if you're not familiar with their issues. And so the beauty for me of Lego is that it puts children on a level playing field. And the nature, the tactile nature helps kids with sensory processing disorder. The focus of them helps kids on the autism spectrum so that they can, you know, now partner with a child where socialization may have been very scary or very difficult for them before. The Lego sort of puts everybody on a level playing field. And a lot of times you'll walk into a classroom and you won't even be able to tell that those kids have any kinds of extra needs. And so we've really been able to, you know, tap into a needed service for kids with these types of special needs, because in a lot of environments, they aren't conducive to their special needs. And
Right.
and
Right.
the, you know, the way that the classes are structured, they don't cater towards the different learning types of kids with autism or sensory processing. And then the Lego just gives you sort of that natural mechanism, you know, to kind of do that. And then, of course, just naturally having a lot of those kids in the class, the teachers become very comfortable with helping them, you know, succeed. And really, for some of those kids, this is their thing. This is their sport.
Yes. Yes.
This is their socialization.
Absolutely.
And it's so critical that they are able to be involved in these things, because then that translates to other areas of their lives where they're able to be successful. So, you know, when I think non-traditional, I think more of non-traditional children, if you will, and those types of things. But yeah, I mean, I think all of our programs really provide a vital service to, you know, for kids like that, and typical or neurotypical children as well. But I think particularly for those kids that are maybe, you know, just a little different, we find them a place to really kind of fit in.
Right. I completely agree with that. And some of those kids that may have not thrived in the traditional setting become leaders in this setting. I had a kid that once had memorized all of the Star Wars episodes, and he would explain the story at the beginning of our Star Wars class, because that's just how smart he was. Like, he knew more than all of us combined. And I'm like, yo, you just do your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that we've started doing with those kids is we actually have social skills class where we use the Lego, and the Lego becomes, they build models. We sort of prompt them to build different things, and they're able to socialize. They're able to do some of the things that maybe they weren't otherwise able to do because they can talk through the Lego. So instead of actually talking to another person, either another adult or another child, they actually talk through the model, and it really helps them sort of work through their socialization issues, even sometimes work through some family issues. I mean, that's quite frankly why Lego is used in therapy quite often. And so we can leverage our programs to really, you know, help these kids in many different ways. I mean, Lego is sort of that natural engineering, you know, physics, mathematical kind of tool, but the social development that comes out of these programs is, I think, sometimes even more important than the academic enrichment.
Man, you're preaching to the choir. I completely agree with all of that. That's
And
awesome.
as do I. See it all the time.
Yeah.
If I can add to what everyone was just talking about, especially with children with autism, I was doing a field trip in a school, and it was sponsored by the PTO, so I had a PTO person with me the whole time. And she kept on trying to set me up in regard to this one particular class and a specific student. And she was warning me, now you have to be careful, and he'll have an aide, but you never know what he's going to do. Well, we came to that time, and I wasn't really sure what to expect, but the aide came through the door and the young man came through the door. And he sat down. They didn't want to, we normally have everyone build in teams of 2 so we can work on collaboration, but they wanted him to build by himself. Well, he did. He was the very first person. Once he started, he never brought his head up, just worked, finished the model, was calm, cool, quiet, finished the model way before any of the other teens in the class, and then came up to me and said, well, I'm finished, Mr. Brown. What can I do next? And I gave him some things to do with the model that he had. And when the class was over, he came up to me and asked if he could help clean up, pick up project kits and things like that. Well, the point was the PTO person who was still there, her mouth was wide open because she had not seen him behave in that manner in any other situation.
Yeah, it really gives kids that outlet that they need, and it you know, they're being yelled at all the time at home. They're being told they can't do this and they can't do that and they should act this way or act that way. And if you give them the chance to succeed, and the Lego naturally gives them that chance. There's tons of studies that talk about Lego and autism. You know, we can provide that to them, and it is amazing. And that's a really good story, Jim. I'm glad you shared it because, you know, lots and lots of kids like that are able to really succeed in all of our programs. And it's really kind of a neat thing when you see it firsthand.
Yeah, and I think one thing that I find really like impressive as well is watching a kid from the first day of class to the last day and how much they've grown in that 5-day period, or if you're doing an after-school program in like a 10-week period, because kids start to figure out who they are and what they're confident about, separate from what their parents think they're good at. And then their parents see them in a different way when they come to class and they see, well, they never do this at home. Well, now they're doing it in this class. So there's something that they all of a sudden discovered in this classroom through play and through Lego.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually just had a conversation. We have a behavioral health therapist on staff, and she was just telling me a story where a parent was warning her, kind of like you were talking about, Jim, that her son does this and he does that and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And then we had already had a couple classes, and the behavioral health consultant said, you know, I see a completely different child, and sort of explained to the parent, the child that and the parent was just completely shocked, you know, at the way the child behaved. So it really is, I truly believe in the magic of that little brick. I really, truly do. I think there's some sort of hidden magic in there that really, you know, helps kids, neurotypical kids and special needs, you know, really excel. I mean, your typical kids, you know, you were starting to talk about robotics. I mean, the power of that. I mean, we start kids in robotics at age 4, and they can start to learn pseudocoding. And, you know, it wasn't till, you know, the end of high school or maybe college that I had to learn Fortran and start coding from, you know, nowadays kids are dragging and dropping and learning the basics. And I mean, before they can even, you know, dress themselves. I mean, it's crazy the power, you know, that we really, you know, that we can really provide these tools at such a young age. I think, Dixie, you were kind of getting at that. I mean, it's really kind of neat to see a child that young really become interested in those types of programs. And then when you get up to the advanced, the Mindstorms that you were sharing, I mean, now you're talking about giving them really true life skills that are going to help them, you know, in, you know, for the rest of their lives, really. So it's really kind of a neat thing to see.
I was just going to add that in observation, one of the relationships, well, it's like your mindset. So then you may have a teacher come in and say, no, so-and-so can't do that, he's autistic. And it's like, okay, well, just let me work with the child. So we come in with the Legos, and the kid can do amazing things, and then add that with the laptops, with the little Kindles where they're tracing, they're doing letters and numbers. And then you see this kid grow, like what you're talking about. They just sit there, and then there's a little withdrawn child person. They just open and blossom. And so it's really, I see you're getting chills thinking about this one little guy, Nico. And Nico wouldn't do anything. He had difficulty with eye contact. It's like, okay, Nico, and, talking with him in English and Spanish. And the child can learn English, and he does. And so he's shown that. And he can learn the Legos and doing the working with the Kindles. And it's just that perception. It's like, no, a kid can only do this. They can only do that. And so give them the tools, open up those doors for the children to be exposed to different things, not just that little piece of paper. So it's really, it's like you all have been saying, it's just really thrilling to see them just blossom and grow like that. It's cool.
Does anybody on the panel know if Lego and Lego curriculum is integrated into any actual school districts, into the formal systems, or are these all extracurricular outside of after-school program type of offerings?
I think recently they've begun approaching schools is what I've heard, but typically, historically, the way that these types of programs were in the schools were through folks like ourselves coming in as third parties and offering programs. But I have heard that the Lego education arm of Lego has started to approach schools to try to allow them to be able to do the programs on their own. The challenge there is the schools don't always have the resources to buy the kits, and the curriculum can be a little challenging to integrate into the regular day. So I think that there's an opportunity there, but I don't know that the solution is quite buttoned up just yet. And so I think most folks are using organizations like us to kind of come in and kind of supplement the learning, if you will. We go into schools and we'll replace science class, or we'll replace certain classes during the day and sort of supplement the curriculum that they're offering, because they either don't have the resources or don't have the desire to really have a teacher learn all of that and do it. It's just easier to kind of outsource that to folks like us. But I do think there is something available. I'm not well educated on that, but I do think there might be.
Yeah, my understanding is Lego Education has been selling various level kits for a long period of time that whole school districts can purchase or whole schools can purchase. But it's what Laura had said. It's just really hard to implement. What we've been teaching during the school day at quite many different schools that are open to like alternative forms of learning. But they all usually have to find separate funding in order to facilitate those. So, but I think what's happening more and more is they're finding that the play educational manipulative is much more, it's resonating more in this type of like school system that's kind of archaic, and they're asking more organizations like ours to step in.
Yeah, one of the things that's interesting is like they're saying, just want to reiterate, it's after-school programs, and people are just amazed at what the kids' ability is, because you're breaking a mindset the adults have. In England, 2 years ago, they mandated that children have to start learning coding starting at 6 years old. So then last year, the United States picked up on that and said, heck, we got to start doing that too. So then they started offering it through, after-school programs. I don't think it's been instituted yet in the system, but it's just a matter of time. Something that's really interesting down here, I wanted to share with you down in Mexico, is that children cannot get into coding classes until they've graduated from high school, and they're like 18, 19, 20 years old. And so we're bringing that to these people here, and it's just like we're the frontier peoples, opening up that door to people. And the directors are saying, oh, the kids can't do that, they don't understand. It's like, yes, they do. Watch, look at this little child of yours who's 2 years old doing something. And why not give them that opportunity? So they're amazed, and so the parents are paying for the classes. And so we make it our point is that we always make the education available to the lower income peoples. And we figure if somebody can afford to pay, a little bit more, then they can help that person. We give out a lot of scholarships. But that's how we spread that knowledge. And pretty soon one kid tells one kid and the parent tells another. And then we've grown, and we're providing service for these people that's not even available or thought about. So it's very satisfying. We're going to have a coding camp this weekend, and probably about 60% of the kids were given scholarships. But once you see that light in those little children's eyes, it's like, oh, I can pass on.
Well, Matt, that's an interesting point here too. In the U.S., there are a lot of grants available for schools, for low-income organizations, and different folks, and so that does open up another world of opportunity for, quite frankly, what we find kids who have never played with Lego because their parents can't afford it, but we can provide that to them through these grant programs that we have. I'm not sure if Mexico has similar things, but that allows you to go into underserved populations. And of course we do, charity and those types of things, going into homeless shelters and providing programs there and those types of things. But the grants that the U.S. have made available to those non-for-profit organizations have been really nice for folks to be able to use on our type of programs.
Dixie said something that was really, really important that I want to touch on. And Dixie said that once parents see the things that their children learn by using the Lego bricks, it changes their mindset. And the mindset of the parents and of, let's say, the districts or the educators that don't use Lego at this point really seem to be the obstacle or that barrier to entry. And I think that if there are ways, we know that playing is the best way to learn. It's intrinsically motivated. You don't have to ask a kid to play. Kids play naturally. And so we know that this is the best way to actually engage an activity, with your child, or a child to engage in an activity. The thing that the barrier to entry is shifting the mindsets. I think that play and this kind of play is actually what we call educational. Can you guys talk a little bit about some of those challenges and some of the ways and messages that those that discard playing with Lego bricks not being educational?
If I can add to that, when we get into certain schools, sometimes there's a resistance with our program and probably everyone else's program if the administration views Lego merely as play. And often in those schools, they will have quote unquote Lego clubs, and generally that is an unstructured free play time, more socialization. The kids all get together, they build what they want, and socialize within that area without, usually a teacher, but without a structure and a point to what they're doing in this learning process. So when we finally get the opportunity to sit in front of the administration and explain, they're building with Lego, and ultimately they're going to be playing with Lego, but there is a point to all of it. There's a structure to the program, and these are the benefits of that structure. And once we get to that point, the administration generally will then jump on board.
Yeah, I think what's important about the programs is that you have to find the right balance between fun and education. And so there are some smaller programs out there that, they slap down, a pile of Lego, and then they say this is their educational program. And there's no curriculum, there's no structure, there's no rigor behind it. And so if you have some of those, call them mom and pops, whatever you want to call them, if you have some of those programs that go in and they can kind of give a bad name to it. But when you've got programs like ours that are much more structured, there's curriculum, there's, the rigor that's kind of behind it, then you can really, as soon as you get in the door, you can show folks, no, these kids, yes, they're playing. Children are meant to learn through play, and that's okay. But they're also developing significant, academic enrichment benefits and social development benefits from doing what we're doing. So yes, it's play, but it's very structured play, and done in a very, sort of academic format. The fundamental belief I would imagine, of all of us, is that children are truly meant to learn through play. And so it's providing that structured, that structure behind it. So it's not just, and you could argue that just sitting down with a pile of Lego bricks, they are learning, which they probably are to some extent. But when you overlay the type of programs that we all have on top of that, you've got some serious academic enrichment going on in the programs.
One of the things that I have, I'm sorry, is that okay?
Oh, no, go ahead, Dixie.
Okay, I'm sorry. So one of the things, like this little piece of paper, people are so oriented to this piece of paper, and the parents want to see curriculum, and so we've done that, and we give it to them, and then they'll say, but they're just playing games on the computer. And it's like, oh my God, it's so much more, because they coded something. It started with Lego, it went up to a little B-bot thing, a little motorized little EV3, and all of a sudden your children are programming. And so if you could just get those parents to sit down with that child with the Lego, to play the Lego, or sit down with them, and then so they're seeing what the children are doing programming. They have a little unicorn that jumps up and goes here and there, goes that. And then the parents tell them, this is basic coding. In the United States, children are 8, 9, 10, and 12 years old, and they're coding, they're making applications, and they're making money off of that per year. A profession is $80,000, which is 250,000 pesos. And the parents stop and they think about it, and it's like, why would I deny? And we ask them a question, don't you want to open up that door to the children? So once you show that curriculum to them, and then they can put the one and one together when they see what their kids are doing, and they've already done leaps and bounds, then it's like, I understand now, and then they'll support you. And then they'll put pressure on those, their representative peoples, their boards, their Padres de Familia. It's like the PTO organization here, which is very powerful in Mexico, a lot more powerful than what it is in the United States. So if we can we get the kids hooked, we know we can do it. And then we can pull those parents in, man, then we can open up tons of doors. And then the money which comes along also to buy all the other equipment that we need.
Right. One last thing to add regarding this is, so the term STEM has become so popular, especially in the U.S., probably around the world as well, like in the last decade. And what's ironic is a lot of us have been probably teaching STEM way before it became a thing, before it was like a term, right? The whole science, technology, engineering, math aspect of it. But that also is our point of entry. So one thing that we've done is we've matched up our curriculum to Common Core standards and national science standards, and we've made sure that we're actually hitting certain manipulatives on each of these, like whether it's second grade or third grade or seventh grade, and then showing that to these unified school districts as like an opportunity to be like, okay, we understand what you're trying to cover, and what we're going to do is we're going to provide context for that. So you should teach your math manipulative, and then we're going to come in and actually make it relevant by playing, so that kids get really excited about the math that they just learned. So that has been really effective in how to like connect everything back to STEM and the Common Core standards that people are really ascribing to right now.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And when we first started, we got that question a lot. Well, my son or my daughter could sit on my living room floor and they could do this, And so we realized that parents kind of weren't getting it. I mean, aside from the obvious social development aspects that your child sitting alone in your family room isn't going to have any social contact with other children, we actually developed something we call a parent connection letter. And so it goes home with the child on the first day of each class, and we just flat out tell the parents, I know it kind of seems like your child just came in here and built a Ferris wheel or built a roller coaster or, built a pirate ship ride or whatever, but when they did that, they learned centripetal force, they learned centrifugal force, they learned G-force. Ask your child today, what gravity is, and see if they can answer. And so we had to get a little bit more in your face with parents, and in a very nice parent connection letter, and in parents' defense, I can't tell you how many times I picked up my kids from activities and I said, what did you do? What did you learn? And their answer was nothing. And that they did stuff, and that they learned stuff. So this connection letter, I mean, we just go right out there and tell parents here, if your child says nothing when they get in the car, here's what they actually did today, and here's what they learned.
Though the upside to what we do is generally when they're finished with class, the kids are very excited and they want to tell their parents what they did, and making it more attractive to the parents at that point because they know the kids are engaged, they know they're excited.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I remember one kid once, his parent came to us the next day and she said, what did he learn in class yesterday? Because he was sliding down this slide and he was like, this slide has a lot of friction. And I was like, yes, this kid is learning and he's able to apply it in all these other weird different ways. So like that's the goal we want, is that kid is going to sit down at dinner time and just start nerding out with their parent about all the weird things that they learned.
To me, this is really interesting because we're talking about the standards of basically the American education system, more or less. I am coming to you as an unschooling parent, and so I'm coming from the other side, and I did not buy the box sets of Legos for my child because I didn't want him to have structured play. I wanted for him to create his own thing, and he always did. And I always believed, because the Lego that I grew up with was just free play. I wonder, is there a balance between the structure and the free? And what can you say to those sort of radical parents like me that are saying too much structure, in your play is probably not a good thing too?
Oh, I completely agree with that. We, at the same time that we're trying to teach them specific like terminology, or we're trying to have them understand simple machines or something like that, what we like to do in our classes at Playwell is we like to give a lot of challenges. So it's, how do we accomplish this bigger goal? How are you going to traverse this ball up this incline plane, across this bridge, all this other stuff, and you figure it out. We're going to give you the world, and we're going to give you 20,000 pieces of Lego for you to explore and challenge it, but it's for you to create your own way of doing it. Or what we sometimes notice with certain kids is maybe they don't want to do a project and they just want to express themselves in another way. And we're like, sure, we're going to give you all this Lego. We just want to know what you want to create, but then go right ahead. And we'll help you facilitate and try to provide you options to create your vision, whatever your vision may be.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two types of kids out there. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of in between, but you'll see the kids that come in and they want to build with instruction. They want that structure. They want that kind of thing. And for that child, that's great. That's fine. But we need to help them with their creativity. We need to help them sort of think out of the box. We need to help them sort of expand beyond that and say, well, that's great. We can give you maybe the basic building instructions, but once you build that, then you need to figure out how it can do this. And so then you have the other child who doesn't want to build with any instructions, just wants to come in and build with their imaginations. And that's a wonderful child too. But sometimes what you need to do with that child to develop that child is apply a little bit more structure to it. So I think it's sort of knowing the children and being able to, in the classroom, sort of identify the different needs that they have and be able to, sort of gently guide that child a little bit out of their comfort zone, if you will, to be able to do these different things. So at Snapology, we try to sort of provide a balance of that, mixture of classes where there are structured builds, but even when there are structured builds, like Jeff was saying, there's that element of, okay, now we showed you this. Why don't you try to see if you can make it do this or that, or those types of things, then mixed with a balance of, we have a lot of themed programs where there's a lot more creativity going on, but we may show them the elements of building a sturdy structure and say, okay, now I want you to apply that to the Star Wars lightsaber that you just built, or whatever it is. So what we're doing is we're trying to take those two sort of extremes of children and try to, again, guide them to their, make them a little uncomfortable to help them grow and help them learn and develop, socially and academically.
Ladies, one of the things that we use is basically a triangle and then an inverted triangle. So traditionally, like here's a little triangle and your teacher up here is the all-knowing Oz, and then the knowledge comes from the kids. So we invert that. We start out with this little introduction, and then we flip it where the kids are at the bottom, and they're the ones that are doing all of that information. So we have what we call an I do, you do, we do. So then we may give a 5, 7, 10-minute introduction, and then they have that time where they're supposed to work on the whatever that particular assignment is, talk with each other, collaborate, and then come back together. They make the presentation. So then we're the facilitators, we're coaches, and they're the ones that have to do all that. So then that's how kids learn from other kids, you know, so that's what we should be looking for.
Yeah, at Playwell, because a lot of us have engineering backgrounds, we like to treat all the kids like engineers. So I remember once I was teaching a homeschool class, and I came into the class, and they were a veteran group, and I go, I don't know how to do this project. We're going to call this the Mission Impossible project. We're trying to build something like a monkey that's going to swing on this line, and I don't know how to do it. And literally sitting with 7-year-olds to 13-year-olds, we just all brainstormed and came up with many different versions of trying to solve this project. So it gives this realm of like, we're colleagues in this quest to figure out this crazy idea, and maybe we'll come up with it, maybe we won't, but we'll fail so much along the way. But let's just enjoy this process, and maybe something cool comes out of it.
And actually, this is a really good point to take a short break. And the reason being, Jeff, is you're talking about creation and collaboration and creativity. And we're going to watch a short video. It's an animation stop motion video using Lego. And so it shows that building Lego and building structures are not just contained to the actual, piece that they're building. So we're going to take a short break. I'm going to go see if I can make a Lego bow tie too, and we'll be back in just a few minutes.
Give it a try and you fall on your face. Your legs are moving but you're running in place. Then you win $1 million in the lottery. Give it away to taxes and charity. Down low, up high, everything's crazy, but hey, I'm feeling alright, feeling alright, feeling alright. I think I really, really, really like it this way. It's all good, it's all fine. Sometimes life doesn't walk in a straight line. Make all your plans, then they turn on a dime. Sometimes life doesn't walk in a straight line. Yeah. Driving to the whiskey, putting on my makeup, jamming to the radio, I miss my exit. An old boyfriend calls me on the cell phone, apologizing for all the things that I've done wrong. I look left, look right, throw up my hands and scream, I'm feeling alright, feeling alright, feeling alright. I think I really, really, really like it this way. It's all good, it's all fine. Sometimes life doesn't walk in a straight line. Make all your plans, then they turn on a dime. Sometimes life doesn't walk in a straight line. I'm going in circles, round and around it goes. Where it stops, nobody knows. Tomorrow's on its way and yesterday's done. So smile and wave at strangers, cause it's fun. Lose your old shoes, raid the lost and found. Find some new kicks and walk them into town now. Look left, look right, throw up your hands and scream, I'm feeling alright, feeling alright, I'm feeling alright. I think I really, really, really like it this way. It's all good, it's all fine. Sometimes life doesn't walk in a straight line. Make all your plans, then they turn on a dime. Sometimes life doesn't walk
So we hope that you guys really enjoyed that video. Unfortunately, I was not able to make a Lego bow tie in the time that we had a break.
I'll just
But I
mail
do
you one.
You-
I'll mail
okay.
you one.
I do want to continue the conversation, and I know there was quite a lively conversation during the break time. Why don't I just hand the floor on over to Jeff? Jeff, why don't you continue the conversation, and I will ask you a question right after that.
Well, I think Jim was giving a good point. I mean, we were talking about how some schools like run Lego clubs, and they're awesome. You know, like kids come together. There's a bucket of Lego. That's great. You know, like at least they're connecting. And what we were trying to explain is like, how do we explain the value of what we bring to the table? Like if I'm at Playwell, like if we're bringing like 20,000 pieces of Lego, what is the difference between the Lego club and this Lego STEM class that you're going to teach? And how do you provide context of like, why is that better? You know, is it better? So what we love to do is we love to come into those Lego clubs and we will like run something for them. Where we're going to bring a bunch of motorized Lego, and you can maybe even combine it with your Lego if you'd like, and we're going to take on this like STEM challenge, and we'll just see if it was fun or not, and let's just see. And we like to like test that way. I don't know if Jim and Laura, you want to say something around that?
We wouldn't do it exactly like that, but it would be perhaps to come and throw in a free class or something that will allow the administration to see what it is what we do and why it is different than a Lego club and what the values that it brings.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what the goal is, right? So a Lego club is designed for the kids to have fun, maybe blow off some steam, maybe build, some cool things with their friends. And if that's the goal, then that's great. And if that's what the school wants, that's great. But if they really, truly want academic enrichment, social development benefits, then that's where our types of programs sort of come in. And so it's really what is the goal of that program. If they just want a program that's recessed where the kids are just having fun with a pile of bricks, that's cool. They've got it. That's what they want. But if they're looking for truly that STEM or STEAM education, and they're looking for something with a little bit more rigor, then that's where I think programs like ours would really kind of benefit them and fit in. And so, again, the programs are great. I mean, there's at least the kids are doing something constructive, and they're having fun and whatnot. So, but I think it really just, sort of depends on what the goal of the school is. But Jeff, I love your example of to kind of show them the difference, what the potential is for this group of kids that love Lego. The potential is they could be doing all of these great things other than just, kind of, babysitting them with Lego essentially. So, but yeah, I think you guys made completely on point comments.
So I want to shift gears just a little bit and ask about, I know absolutely nothing about this. How are designs created and mechanical robotic bits put inside? How do you do that?
I guess I'll start. And if I'm understanding your question, it's sort of how do we come up with the builds? Is that sort of the question? Okay, so there's a couple different ways. We at Snapology have a curriculum director. We also have what we call a program advisory panel where we have folks that advise us on different engineering and robotics principles, and we even have a robotics expert that actually designs a lot of the builds that we use so that we're able to, with one kit, have, 50, 60, 70 builds as opposed to, maybe just a dozen builds or something like that. So I would guess other folks here on the panel have something similar, but really it's a matter of taking the tools that you have and the kits that you have and being able to leverage them and build as many different things as you can. And for us at Snapology, the best way to do that was really to contract with folks and to hire a curriculum director to be able to develop all of those things. So the robotics expert designs the build and the curriculum director puts the academic rigor around it.
Which would be the same way that Bricks for Kids, their approach to the whole concept. one big difference would be on Bricks for Kids World is there's always a lot of input from the franchise owners because we're out in the field constantly. We're dealing with the customers and can give immediate feedback to corporate as they work on new themes, new concepts. And then internally they have various educators and people who are creating the models and coming up with, in our case, we combine themes and then we'll run that theme during a session and all the models involved tie in to the theme, whether it be 6 weeks or 8 weeks in that session.
I'll go. One thing that's interesting for us is, so we're just a bunch of nerdy engineers. So like in 97, it was Tim and he would come up with the ideas. And then Alex came on and he was like this Stanford grad with a product design degree and he started coming up with ideas. And then we started bringing a lot of teachers in. We started bringing a lot of engineer at one point coming in. And frankly, it kind of evolved from like instructors making up the projects to sometimes our kids would invent the projects. Like we used to do this monorail project and then these two kids were like, we got to put them on the same track and smash them together. And that became a project. Like it just kind of evolved from trial and error. And now, because now we're like, we're in like 27 states and we're teaching, 100,000 kids a year. Like, we now have a curriculum director that has a background in engineering and we have someone with their master's in, education and, but still, I think the core of it that we still want to emphasize, especially because we really want to maximize the skill sets of our nerdy instructors, is we want them to also take our curriculum and kind of like come up with new ideas as well. So at the same time that, yes, we are teaching people stuff, we really don't want to limit them, as we've had like biomedical engineers that have shown articulation because they really know that, to, people that have worked for NASA that are like, I'm going to show you how a rocket actually works, but I'm going to use Lego to do it. So we're like, yo, more power to you. So.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting thing too. I mean, when you go, it's not only the teachers, it's not only the business owners that, the franchisees, but it's also the students sometimes that lead the way. And so when you're in the classroom, it's really important to get that feedback of what's working well, what's not working well, and to be able to constantly sort of update the curriculum or add new things or, do what you need to do to kind of make it current. And so that's what's really kind of cool is you can have a program that was developed, 5, 6, 7 years ago, but it's constantly changing because kids are always coming up with new things and teachers are always coming up with new things. And so it's really kind of neat to see how things sort of evolve over time.
Laura, I wanted to ask you, can you foresee a curriculum, a school that covers all of the classic regulations, if you will, and the entire curriculum is nothing but Lego bricks?
I don't know about nothing but Lego brick. I think it's nice to have a healthy variety of activities. In fact, at Snapology, we also use a product called Connect. We use computers. We do drone programs. And so we do have a variety. I think Dixie talked about 3D printing and those types of things. So I think there's a lot of technologies and there's a lot of things that can be really, really helpful in a classroom. Lego is a fundamental product that really provides the opportunity for a lot of different levels of learning. And so it's great to have that sort of as a core. But the reality is the kids need to learn, multifaceted concepts. And so I think the key is, Lego is wonderful, but I think the key is really hands-on interactive learning is really what we're talking about here. And so, I mean, I can't say enough good things about Lego, but all Lego, I'm not sure. But Lego connects, 3D printing, drones, all of those things. The hands-on learning is really what the kids are after. And the reason we are able to hire some really good teachers is because they're frustrated in schools because they're having to teach for the students to pass tests and they're not able to be as creative in the classroom as they want. And so the programs that we offer, we can come in, we can provide that supplemental learning that is creative, that is fun, that is interactive. and accomplish some things that, quite frankly, it's not the teachers' faults in the schools. They need to pass these tests. They need to abide by these standards. And so, it's really, I think it's challenging for schools these days. And so I think that's why the programs that we offer are so important, for those schools to offer in tandem with them. So, like anything, I think it's a balance. You need to have a nice balance of those things.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing that we are just really also careful to do is, so there's this term that's thrown around a lot around edutainment, where it's just like, we're going to provide education and entertainment at the same time. And sometimes it's like, well, the kids actually also have to be literally sitting down and learning. Like they have to have built that skill set as well. So what we like to do here a lot at Playwell is we want to provide context after they've learned something. So if I'm learning math, then what is the actual hands-on manipulative that Laura just spoke about, or science, that I can then apply to make it relevant right now, like literally right now for a kid? Because if you tell a kid, well, you'll need to know chemistry, in like 5 years, it's going to totally help you out. They don't really care. But if you're like, okay, I'm going to show you why, you really need to understand physics, because it's going to actually help you in accomplishing the goal that we're doing right now today, then they're much more interested in it. And then they're much more interested in physics for the next 3, 4, or 5 years. And then maybe they think they could be physics majors, or maybe they think they can be the next great inventor. So that's what we want. We want to provide context after they've learned the core standard.
I just wanted to say that, as one of the educators we're teaching, I was very fortunate because I taught Spanish, so I didn't have to teach the kids how to take the test, but I told them the tricks on how to pass a test with multiple choice. But to give them a little bit of exposure so I could stay 5 minutes within my curriculum and cover what I needed to do. So today, the typical class with a group of 4 to 5-year-old kids is 15 minutes. We work on the Kindle and we're doing, the drawing and using the fingers to go ahead and do that, lettering alphabets. And then got a pencil, and so then we're retracing some letters and stuff. Then finish up with 20 minutes. And so they had to build some kind of professions, all directed towards professions. So then this is where I show them a picture of a hospital, of a dentist's chair, of a surgeon's chair, of a nurse's, whatever it is, of teachers. And so with those Legos, they can see that, visualize it, and then that's your end product. That's the final that they had to do. So that's fantastic. Back in the old days, all we ever had was paper and pencil, and that was it. Not fun like what they have nowadays.
The one thing we do a lot of, and I'm sure Snapology and Playwell does, is I'll call them field trips, workshops, whatever. And you're going into school during school hours, running your program, and generally we design it to complement whatever the current area of study is. And the number one feedback I always get from the teachers whose classes we're in is how great it is to provide the kids a hands-on activity that ties in exactly with what they just learned, and the effect that it has on their ability to retain what they've been learning.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Jim. And there, it's anecdotal information, but some pretty good anecdotal information that kids who take programs like ours, there is definitely an increased interest in learning and an increased interest in doing well in school. And so by doing the hands-on interactive activities that we all provide, you're building confidence, really. And you're giving that child the opportunity to excel and to do something fun and to really start to maybe enjoy school, where maybe they were challenged, in other ways if they're a non-traditional learner or, something of that nature.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. One thing that is like what I love most is when we teach something to a child that their parent doesn't know, and then they go home and they're explaining to their parent, like we have like this car, right? And we like show them how to build a drive shaft in the car. And then when they're driving home and there's a truck and they see that drive shaft go around, they're like, that's a drive shaft. And their parents are like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't even know what you're talking about. And then this kid's like, well, let me just break this down for you. And it's amazing because then all of a sudden they are the expert. It's the first time they are explaining something to their parent. Then they go to school and they explain that to the teacher and they explain to their friends. And that confidence just builds and builds until all of a sudden, they're the expert on cars in their class. So we just want to figure out ways in which we can create that space for that to happen.
One of the things I was going to say is that in reference to the Girls Who Code, where this woman, female engineer in the States, started out with, I think, maybe 20 girls 2 years ago. And then that nonprofit, I believe, spread. And so now, during that 2 years time frame, 20,000 girls have gone into coding. But a lot of that basic stuff is just with the confidence that you can build from, putting these little things together, and then the mathematics, and then the success that goes along with that. So then one of the studies I was just reading this last week was that girls who were introduced to coding in middle school grab a hold of that career, and then there's been an increase of like about 67% of the girls who are going into coding so that they could go into high school, go into coding careers, because you certainly don't have to go into college to get that, that traditional route. You can pick up coding in probably 3 to 9 months. I'm not sure what the time frame is. But just open up the door for those kids. And girls are just excelling. Most of the students, we have this one school that's bilingual, and these girls are just incredible. There's maybe 16 girls and 3 boys, and the girls have just taken off like crazy, and they've created a calendar for the school. And wow, it's just thrilling. It's thrilling to see that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the girl discussion is interesting, and I don't know if you guys want to get into the girl discussion, but
absolutely.
Yeah, I have mixed thoughts on that. I'm an actuary by trade, which is code for math geek. And I grew up in obviously a male-dominated career, was one of the very few girls in accelerated math programs in high school and all of those types of things, very few girls that were math majors in college. And so I find it interesting, this whole discussion, and I often, talk with our franchisees about having girl-only programs. And it's interesting because I have mixed emotions about it, because I absolutely, as a female myself, want to see more girls get interested in STEM careers. And I think, that's naturally happening, or maybe not so naturally happening, but Lego is making a push with girls. I think parents are becoming more educated through the Girls Who Code and, all of the different, Fem, STEM, and all of the different programs that are out there for girls, which is wonderful. But it's interesting because when I think about, do we need a special program for girls, I think I was a girl who loved all of that stuff. Now I'm a geek by nature. But I didn't need a special pink brick. I wanted to be building with the boys, and I didn't care what color the bricks were. I wanted to be in the robotics. I wanted to be in, I wanted to be doing all those things. And so it's an interesting thing because, we have the Frozen and the Friends class, and, we do a lot of, themed parties around princesses and things like that, which is absolutely wonderful. We do very boy stereotypical things as well. But when it comes to some of the more mechanical or more fundamental STEM or STEAM programs, I think girls just need to be right in there in the mix. And I think it's a parent education and parent marketing thing, because, we go to promotional events and we'll have a booth set up, and literally parents will be pushing their boys into the booth and dragging the girls away to go to something that seems a little bit more girly. And so I think it's a parent type, I don't know if it's a stereotype or what you call it, but it's really interesting to me, this whole getting girls involved, and how do you get them more involved? Because I don't think it's building jewelry boxes out of Lego. I think the girls who are interested in these things are like myself. They're just interested in it. They don't care what color the bricks are, and they're not looking to put their earrings in it. They just want to build and explore and learn. So I'm interested on your thoughts. I have this conversation, monthly with my franchisees and with the corporate team. But just interested what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. I'll go ahead, Jim.
No, I was just going to say that I agree with you, Laura, about the concept of having just girls classes and how effective that is, other than as an intro to perhaps tweak an interest. But after that, I think a lot of it has to do with, in terms of getting girls more engaged in our types of programs, is a confidence level. You know, sometimes it's when I'm trying to, I'll go into a school and we're going to announce the classes and all that, and invariably kids will bring in some examples, and the kids come up to the table, and I'm always singling out the girls and telling them that, you know, this is not just for the boys, that you not only can you do this, but you're going to find that you like it a lot. And quite often girls can be much better builders than boys, especially at your age, because you have more focus.
Yeah, I completely agree with both of what you're saying. One thing that we did, maybe it was 5 years ago, is a group of our female managers got together and were like, do we want to run a girl-powered engineering program? Like, do we want to try that? And we were thinking of that because the point of entry of what you were saying, Laura, was challenging. We would have for every 15 boys, maybe 3 to 5 girls in our classes. And we were like, how do we change that, right? So we wanted to create an easier point of entry. So we created a girl-powered engineering program. And it was the exact same curriculum, the exact same. No jewelry boxes, no like, you know, no, like all the, none of the same legitimate program. And we even said, if boys want to join the girl-powered program, they're more than happy to. But it's going to be taught by a female engineer, and we're going to run this class as an opportunity for these girls to take this Playbook class, see what the format is, and then from there can go into our Star Wars class or a Minecraft class or some other class. And we found them to be phenomenal. Like our female instructors were like, these are one of my most enjoyable classes. And frankly, because, you know, there are now more women graduating than men from college, and there's so many more women graduating with STEM, STEM focuses, we were like, we want to help be a part of producing that next generation that's frankly going to be running the Googles and Facebooks and the new frontier of tech companies. And we want them in our classes. So we saw that as a really good avenue, and it's been great because now we're running, I don't know, like maybe like 100 or so, like just girl-powered programs where some boys have even joined it as well. But it's very empowering. And then from there, a lot of girls have gone into our other programs. And I will say this, on the counter part of what you said earlier, Laura, is I do remember this one class. This was really early on, like 2005 or 6, when I was teaching. And I remember it was one girl in my class. One girl, her name was Savitri. She was phenomenal. She was the best builder in the class. And she raised the level, as Jim was saying, she just raised the level of every other boy in there. And we have this last class where like people like have to do jousting competitions. And Savitri built something called the Savitri. And it just was destroying all the guys, just destroying. But the greatest part about it was that she was raising the level because these guys were like, I can't lose to a girl. Well, guess what? You did. And you're going to continue to lose. And what happened was at the end of it, she was like 54-0. And she was so happy. And she like left the class and I high-fived her and I thought I'd never see her again. And later, I'm just walking in a park and some car drives up and the window rolls down and Savitri jumps out and goes, I built the Savitri. And I was so amped because I was like, that girl who's now probably in college or past college is like, I dominated in this room full of men, and now I'm as an engineer, I'm going to do that again. And that was like, that. I do see that role and that moment that can happen, but for some people that aren't comfortable at the beginning, we wanted to provide them a point of entry that made sense. So
I just want to say I'm probably, I've got a couple of years and all the rest of you guys here, so my experience was completely different from a couple of different reasons of the years. plus the time frame I was going to school. So as girls were obviously not allowed to go into wood shop and different things, and we had to go girl route. So then I was always, well, why can't I be with the boys, and why can't I play baseball and basketball and all this stuff? So then some of those sports, we weren't allowed to get into. Some of those classes we weren't allowed to get into until college. And I even remember when like I was a junior in college when they finally said, okay, we're going to give money to females for athletics. And so it's like, great, but it's too damn late for me. So I can see the importance of having girls classes because as a female Mexican-American student, I was not encouraged by my parents to go into mathematics, into science, but into, you know, like you were focused, you were directed. And so that tradition still hangs on because you'll have a lot of people coming from the Americas, Central, South America, Mexico, who feel that girls should be in this career and they shouldn't be in that career. But if those girls are able to join into some club, and geez, it wouldn't make any difference to me if the little bricks were pink, as long as they were making something that they could understand, that they could feel successful about, then let them go for that. And then so I think that woman, and I'm not real sure, maybe you guys can help me out, that the woman that did the girls code was maybe Indian American, like East Indian. And so fantastic, because when I was growing up, I had no role models that were black or brown. And so it's like, well, can I be that profession? Can I be that engineer? Can I do this? Can I be an architect? And so then it's like, well, you know, let me get some exposure. And I was just one of those stubborn, bullheaded people. But I had 15 other little girlfriends who said, no, I can't do that. I have to go get married. I have to have kids. I have to do this. And so it's like, gee whiz, you know, too bad. Look at the doors that have been shut. And so then our job, like getting back to its parents, is we all want to have better things, present better situations for our kids. And if it happens to be through a girls' club, fantastic. If it's just a boys' club, fantastic. I don't care as long as they're learning something. So I see each one of them has special needs. That's all.
Yeah, I love both your points there, Jeff and Dixie, about having a girl teach the girls' engineering program, and having, Dixie, like you said, you know, people of the, you know, black or brown, you know, in positions, you know, to be able to inspire kids that look like them, you know, or that are females, or, you know, whatever race they are, to see it in action. It's one thing to give them the tools to do it. It's another thing to see a female engineer or to see a successful person doing that type of thing. And I think for sometimes we take it for granted, you know, those things maybe aren't as important, but I think, you know, I think they really truly are. And how nice for girls and for people of color to be able to experience those types of things in these types of programs. I think those are really great points. I'm glad you brought them up.
And not only do I feel like it's really powerful for you to see someone that looks like you, which is just beyond empowering, but also to like challenge what they think an engineer is, or challenge what a Lego master builder is. When a female instructor comes in, they're like, you're my teacher? And it's like, yes, and I know more than you, and I'm probably one of the greatest builders you've ever met. And that's awesome. I mean, we had, you know, in Colorado, one of the places we teach, we had a female former NASA engineer that was teaching with us during the summer. And she would literally sit down the kids and explain, like, this is the satellite that I helped build, and these are the failures I had to go through in order to become a NASA engineer. And it just blew their mind, because at that very moment, whether it was a girl or a boy, they were like, maybe I can become a NASA engineer. I didn't even know that was a job. Like, so that aspect, simply for them being there in front of them, is so empowering, because it provides them all these avenues they never thought possible.
So I'm wondering, is there a difference between the retail offerings in Lego Bricks and what's used in standard curriculum, after-school curriculum that you guys facilitate? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, the Lego that you see at Toys R Us and toy stores and things like that, that's the Lego company. And so those are sort of your theme-based programs. Occasionally you might see a Mindstorms robot or something on a shelf. But beyond that, there's sort of the themed-based sets that you can make educational, but I don't think are inherently, there's no curriculum, I guess I should say, around those. But the Lego company, which is a joint venture between, Lego Education, which is a joint venture between the Lego company and a company called Pitsco, is where some of the really nice kits come out of. Some of the kits that help us build simple machines or robotics or those types of things. We use a variety, so some of our kits are Lego Education kits, and some of them are sort of homegrown kits that we make ourselves in our programs at Snapology, and some of the programs are just using the loose bricks, which probably one day were the sets that were sitting on the shelves at Toys R Us, but now are just kind of in a loose pile. So I think the Lego Education, sort of that educational arm of Lego, is where you see sort of the more rooted in education. The sets that are more rooted in education, and then I would imagine, I'm pretty safe in saying this, but all three of us then take and we develop our own curriculum around those sets. So we're not using the Lego Education curriculum. We're using our own curriculum, just using the sets that Lego Education provides.
Or in the case of Bricks for Kids, a lot of times we're designing our own models, though over time they start to look very similar to what's coming out of Lego Education right now.
We take a lot of parts from Lego Technic sets. That's like a huge part of our curriculum because we want a lot of motorized Lego. But what's ironic or funny is a lot of parents will be like, they'll see our suspension bridge that we build. Like we build this like 6-foot long suspension bridge, and they're like, "What kit's that? Where can I buy that kit?" And we're like, "We don't make these as a kit. We actually just show your kid how to do it so they can go home and do it themselves." So we're really trying to get away from the sets and more so be like, how do you take your weird Star Wars plane and how are we going to motorize it? And we're going to show you how to actually create like pneumatic lift on the wings, or we're going to show you how to create the gear drive train on the back of this so it can drive. But we try to shy as far away from like trying to model anything around the Lego sets, as that seems more aesthetic, and we're really trying to get more into like the inner workings of how something works.
So for the last bit of the show, I was wondering if everybody on this panel could share a story or two of some of the profound learning that they've experienced as a facilitator using Lego bricks. And I know that's putting you a little bit on the spot, but I'd love to hear some of these stories. So take us along on your journey.
One of my favorites are for the very first class at this particular school, and the kids were building a motorized windmill, and these two boys finished the model in about 10 minutes, and the rest of the class was moving at a much slower pace. So the one young man comes up, Mr. Brown, oh, I do now, we're finished. I said, okay, well, it works this way. Why don't you figure out how to make it work that way, whatever that way was. And then I forgot all about it, what he even said to him, and I went back to working with the rest of the class. And about 15 minutes later, the kid comes back and says, well, I have my back to him, and he starts yelling my name. And I turn around and he says, look what I did. And he had ripped the entire model apart. And the model was using pulleys and a rubber band to transfer energy from the bottom axle to the top axle to make the blades spin. And he ripped the pulleys apart, got rid of the rubber band, and proceeded to use a series of cascading gears to transfer the energy. But it was an idea that they came up on their own, came up with the idea and then figured out how to implement it. And that to me was just a great moment within the class. And I steal that idea and I use it as a challenge in other classes all the time.
Yeah, that's a good one. I've got a couple examples. The first one would probably be very early on in Snapology with my own sons. Of course, they were subject to every single program we offered. And so it was a real experience for me to have them go through the classes. When we started Snapology, they were 5 and 6 years old, so they were pretty young. And I remember my son took our sort of most basic engineering program because he was 6 years old at the time. And he took the class, he enjoyed the class, and I remember going into his room like a couple weeks after the class had ended, and he had made basically an amusement park. We have a local park here called Kennywood in Pittsburgh, and he had rides that were going up and down, and he had actually used the principles that he was taught in a completely different way. I mean, he wasn't just making a bigger catapult, or he wasn't, just taking the things he had built and modified them a little bit. I mean, he had used them in a completely different way to accomplish his goal. And it was interesting because they really kind of did look like some of the rides at Kennywood. So he was able to really sort of, instead of just kind of start putting bricks together like kids do, and then they get done and they're like, oh yeah, that looks like a ship, he was actually able to think about it ahead of time, build what he wanted using the principles that he had learned. And I think for me, that was kind of a validation and kind of an aha moment that, we really are providing a real benefit to kids, and that they're able to really kind of change the way they're thinking. And so that was kind of my early on. And then the other probably most impactful experience that I had was really working with a group of older teenagers, mostly 18 and 19 years old, with mentally challenged, autistic, severe disabilities. Each one had their own aid, and they were doing hand over hand, which is where basically an aid sort of helps them build hand over hand building. And they were making pinwheels from our junior engineers program using Duplo blocks. So here we had 18-year-old men essentially building with the Duplo blocks. And for that, it was not only an extremely rewarding principle when these men went up and they put their pinwheels up against the fan and they saw it spin, and you could just see they were nonverbal, but you could see the expression on their face and just how excited they were that they were able to do that. It was really a rewarding experience, and really kind of made, again, kind of back to the magic in that brick and being able to help anybody, sort of achieve those goals and be able to feel that success and feel, sort of that thing. So for me, those are probably the most impactful experiences.
I wanted to say, in my classes, one of my themes for years has been from Don Quixote de la Mancha, where it's dream the impossible dream. So in my classroom, I have this big poster. It's just it's black and white, very basic. And so you see the two men, Sancho Panza and Don Quixote, on their horses, and there's a windmill in the background. So then my little autistic guy was looking at the picture, and so then this was like a freeform. You have to build something, some kind of a structure. And so the little guy built a windmill, and he got it with the little Lego things that went up like that. And then it says, teacher, meet up. So then he went and ran, and you could see it. It's like, oh man, it still gives me chills when I think about that. That was such a thrill, because that showed me my child had actually learned something. And, even though he's what you call autistic, he's just a child. So it's cool.
For us, the two that really resonate with me, one happened a really long time ago. So when Katrina happened, I was teaching a homeschool class, and one of the kids was like, how did the levees break? Because they didn't know. So what we did right there in the class is I built walls like levees, and I filled them with bricks, and we just broke them. And then they were like, bricks were coming out of them. And I said, you have an hour to clear the debris, build either vehicles or some other apparatus that's going to block the walls, because I'm going to pour more bricks in the middle and cause another flood. And you have to do that. And we actually started acting like the civil engineers, that we're going to try to fix the levees. And doing that in that homeschool class was just not only I found really empowering for them, but just also fascinating for me because it just was an opportunity where they actually felt like they could see how they could make an impact. And then from there, I remember, there was that. And then I remember when there was flooding in New York. Do you remember the floods that happened in New York? I forgot. Hurricane Sandy. Well, one of the schools that we were at, or that we were helping with, their whole like establishment got decimated. So a few weeks, maybe like a month after, we built the city again with the kids, and it was kind of like this symbolic way of like rebuilding their town again. And from there, we've now done that as like a thing where we are like, we've built, like just this weekend, we built St. Louis out of Lego, and we built San Jose out of Lego, and we built Atlanta and DC out of Lego, and we are using like the fact that we have so much Lego, and we're like, how do we provide an opportunity for kids to communicate what they want to see in the future for their community? And that has been extremely empowering and really powerful because they're basically going to be the ones that are going to be dictating what is going to happen. And now they get to do it right now. And that's been pretty awesome.
These are amazing, heartwarming stories even. Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I would love it if we could take the last bit of the show and share any final thoughts that if you were speaking, and these would be geared towards a parent who may want to enroll their kid in one of your programs, but maybe not specifically in your program. What I'm interested in is your thoughts about the value that this brings to children's lives, your thoughts about how to help parents shift their perspective that play is more than play. And even though there is truly intrinsic value in play by itself, that these sorts of programs can be so much richer than just what they see on the outside. Share any final thoughts that touches on those things. And I think that would be probably the most helpful for anybody watching this. So I'm just going to open this up to the panel and let you guys jump in.
I would say that as we've been saying, we talk about STEM a lot within our program and hands-on activity, but some of the core values that I see are developing critical thinking skills, developing a level of confidence in the kids, that getting them to understand that they can do things on their own. When they run across a bump in the road, they don't need an adult all the time to help them. What they need to do is learn to look at the situation and figure out how to overcome it. And that's a major part of what we're trying to do within our classes is get them to understand that they can do things on their own. They don't need adults. And then the other thing is working on a collaboration aspect, that two heads quite often are better than one, especially if they're talking and communicating together. And so, for me, that is two of the core values that I believe our program brings to the table. And when we're talking about the concept of free play and Lego clubs and things like that, as a major difference in the two program, or in our program and probably Snapology and Playwell versus a Lego club or anything like that.
Yeah, I can kind of go next. I would agree with Jim. I mean, if I was talking to a parent, I think there's a couple things. sort of know your child and know what your child is good at. And, we have a wide variety of children in our programs. And, from athletic kids to non-athletic kids, from gifted kids to special needs. And so, there's not a child that can't benefit from these types of programs. I mean, not only the academic enrichment, which is, pretty apparent when you look at, probably the descriptions of the programs, but, to Jim's point and to a lot of the things that we've been talking about, the social development aspects and the building confidence and those types of things by putting your kids in these types of programs and other similar programs too, music and, arts programs and things like that, you're building confidence and you're letting your kids explore and find out what they're good at and what they enjoy. And so I think these programs that we offer maybe aren't as popular sometimes, or historically you think boys should always be in sports and those types of things. But I think we provide a real place, for kids to build confidence, to make friends, to, kind of provide that, sport for the mind, if you will, for kids. And really at the same time, spark their interest in learning, spark their creativity, and really give them that ability and that desire to do well in school, because they're hands-on interacting with things and they see what they can do. They again, the confidence factor there. So, so kind of similar to Jim, but, I think those are really good points that he made.
I was going to say one of the things that we always talk to about the parents is the critical thinking ability, which in our American schools, a lot of teachers aren't teaching that. You just have to sit there and regurgitate. And it's unfortunate because there's a lot of great minds up there that are just being stifled. So then in talking with the parent, I would say open up the door for your child, open up a possible career, various careers they didn't think that they'd be able to participate in. Give them the tools so they can participate in that. Think outside of the box. They don't have to stay inside the box, and challenge people. Let those kids dream and go make those dreams happen.
I guess I approach it from a different standpoint of, I guess I would ask the parent, what is your fondest memory of you in school? What were you doing? Right? Like, what were you doing? I'm almost positive you were probably playing. You just were, and that's the thing that you most resonate with. And I think what's really interesting when you're speaking to parents, and now we work a lot with adults, and we're doing team building stuff and all this weird nerdy thing. And it's fascinating because you have these companies and these organizations that are like, we need to be more creative. We need to be more innovative. We need to think outside the box. And it's like, guess who's doing that? Like, your kids are doing that. They've been doing that forever. And what we're trying to do is provide them a venue where they can tap into that inner genius that a lot of adults have kind of lost. And we're we want to really help them provide this medium to really explore not only what is possible with all these Lego, but also who they are, what do they want to do in their life. And we're going to explore this through these different worlds that we're going to recreate. And we're just doing it out of this little brick that we've just invented. So what we really want is we really want to not only emphasize to the parents yes, we want your kid to have fun and enjoy and learn, but really we're really tapping into them becoming more self-actualized. And also, we really also want them to come away from this and then play with you as well, because frankly, you probably need to play a little bit more as well, and just start to see them as sometimes your colleague when it comes to play. Sometimes they are the expert, especially when it comes to play. So we'll just allow them more opportunities to do that. It's just a given. But I think a lot of times, we have to focus on results, and we have to focus on, and it's just just enjoy the process of play. And there's some pretty amazing things that will be created. And then the last thing that we usually tell our instructors all the time is we always tell them, because we teach so many kids every year, we are always saying, you could have the next person that creates the next Snapchat, the next Tesla, the next Facebook in your class. That is a legitimate possibility. And think about it. These kids many of the careers that they're going to do don't even exist. Like the whole industry doesn't even exist. Like VR is not even a real thing yet. And they're going to be doing this. So use this opportunity to truly inspire them. And you could be, in your small way, inspiring like this new generation of like innovators that we're going to also benefit from, and frankly could probably help save the world. So just think of that and know that that is what you're carrying when you're going into a class. That we're not just teaching, or we're not just introducing engineering, but we really are potentially helping these kids change the world.
So I need to put in the show notes, if you only have 10 minutes to watch the show, watch the intro and then fast forward to this segment, because you guys summed it up so amazingly. Thank you. This was incredible. We only have time now to go around to each of our panelists and give you a few moments each to share about the projects and websites that you're working on. And I will remind the viewing audience that you can find the links on the show notes page for episode number 105. So go ahead and share your projects and websites, and then we're going to have to close the show. 2 hours flew by quickly, huh? So Jim, why don't we start off with you? Go ahead and share your project and website.
Okay, by project, do you mean what we're working on right now, or? Okay. So as a franchise, I have a limited territory. What we're working on right now are, actually our primary focus right now is working with kindergartners and first graders, getting them engaged in a series of things that we will then bring back to them next year at the same schools at a different level. In terms of the website, again, Bricks for Kids is a franchise. There'll be a corporate website, and then based on where anyone's living, you put in your zip code and it will direct you to the nearest Bricks for Kids franchise and all the different activities that they would be providing in your area.
Okay, I'll go next. Snapology is located at snapology.com, and you can learn about the different locations that we have very easily by going to that website. And if there's not a location in your area, there are franchises available in every state and also internationally as well. So you can check out the franchising information on that same snapology.com website.
Okay, so you can check us out at Language Institute of the Americas and Universal One International Academy, and we're on Facebook, and we have fun down here. And Lainey can testify because she was down here with us for her fabulous conference and stayed here at our places. And we have swimming pools, and come on down to Mexico. Learn something down here.
Okay, this is Jeff with Playwell Technologies. The website is play-well.org. And yeah, we basically are going to be teaching in 27 different states and randomly also in Paris, France. I don't know how that happened, but it apparently happened. Yeah, we're going to be running summer camps all over the place. Just the same thing, play-well.org, and then type in your zip code. As for on right now is we're going to be doing something with Soul Pancake, I guess the YouTube channel that like Kid President does, and we'll be making 1,000 cranes out of Lego, peace cranes for International Peace Day. And we're going to be also working to make the Voyager 1 with the people, because we're at the 40th anniversary of Voyager 1's coming out, so we're going to be doing that in DC. But yeah, if you just go to our website, play-well.org, we're doing a lot of really nerdy stuff. And frankly, if you have an idea, what would you do with 500,000 pieces of Lego? Let me know, because we may want to do it, because we have it.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. This has been so much fun. I knew this was going to be a fun show, and I felt as if I got to play with Lego with all of you. So thank you again for sharing your stories and contributing to the conversation. And thank you, Anne, who produced this amazing show. Thank you for putting together this great panel. It was wonderful and dynamic. And thank you, Mel and Biggie, over at the Conscious Consumer Network. Without you, we would not have the platform to share these conversations. And thank you to all of our viewing audience. I'm so grateful you're a part of our movement. Finally, I just want to say, wherever you are and whatever you do, continue to always do it for the love of learning.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire: the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.